Wednesday, 8 games, NBA, recap, Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and if you don't watch the violence, you'll never get desensitized to it. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky at joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA, and get $20 off your first purchase. Also, LockedOnDaily.com. Go and find the newsletter, go find your favorite team, sign up, and it gets delivered to your inbox 5 days a week like magic. We've never figured out how it happens. It just works. So we're here to look at Wednesday's games across the NBA. 8 games on, like I said. It is National Apricot Day. Do you say apricot or apricot? Apricot. Is that an American accent thing, or are there people without American accents that call it an apricot? It's an apricot. Apricot. Also, terrible fruit, but it is National Apricot Day, so I don't mean to slander it on a special day. Oh, you're a good fruit. I love you, apricots. Terrible. Worst fruit ever. Let's actually just talk about the action now, because I don't want to get sucked into a fight with fruits. Sounds bad as well. The fires in LA, I talked about that this morning, just about the impact that it has, but there is actually an NBA impact for that as well, in terms of Kawhi Leonard had to miss today's game. I believe it is a high likelihood of his house being damaged or completely destroyed, but he's also away from the team trying to help family members who had to be evacuated as well. There's a possibility that the Lakers game tomorrow against the Hornets in LA may be postponed, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's any other sort of issues that crop up, personal reasons for other players. So we've got to be aware that is something that exists. The Grizzlies, well, their injury report is really interesting because we've got some positives and negatives. Ja Morant is back, allegedly. He is questionable. Santi Aldama is questionable. I didn't think they'd be available. Marcus Smart is still out, but those guys are ready to go. Desmond Bane missed the last game. He's questionable. I guess that's a good thing. And then, of course, Jaren Jackson popped up on the injury report as questionable as well. So we're either going to get everybody there, or they're all going to be out again. But at least it's good news on the Morant and the Aldama front. The Warriors, they've got a back-to-back Thursday to Friday, so Steph, Draymond, and Dennis Schroeder all appeared on the injury report. Steph is definitely missing one of these games, and I would say by this listing that Green and Dennis probably miss one too, and then we'll find out exactly which one it is when that happens, and then you're looking to stream other guys in. I wouldn't be shocked if they played Thursday, sat Friday, and maybe there's a chance Pajemski's available Friday to fill in for some of those guards, or Steph and Schroeder just alternate days off across the Thursday, Friday. That would be my guess, and then you look at random fill-ins for one-day streams, but usually we're not going to have massive interest in a one-day stream in that spot. And then the other good news is in Orlando, where Paolo Banchero is going to be returning. Like the Warriors, they play Thursday, Friday, only 2 teams that do that. And he's going to play in one of those 2 games. I would expect he plays on Thursday against the Wolves, gets the day off on Friday for recovery, and then he's returning and back after that. But that's where we're at with Banchero. Suggs is out on Thursday, but Paolo is back. That's probably going to kill Tristan da Silva's value. And I wouldn't be shocked if Goga Bitadze moves to a smaller role now. We will watch it. We don't drop Goga yet, but we will watch that because it is something that there is a distinct possibility of happening. Shall we go games? Let's go games. First game, Washington up against the Philadelphia 76ers. Alex Sarr was out of this game, so that meant that the big fella, Jonas Valanciunas, moved into the starting lineup. Sarr was ill. There was no Jordan Poole or Malcolm Brogdon again. And let's start with Valanciunas, who only played 21 minutes. Cool. But he did have a 14 and 14 double-double. It's, I guess, these opportunities when you've got someone like Valanciunas, you hope that he plays a little bit more. He still just brought basically the same thing that he brings every other game. What we did get was Rashawn Holmes playing 27 minutes out of nowhere. 3 points only for Holmesy, but 11 rebounds and 2 blocks. And if you thought that was a move you were going to make, then good luck to you. I don't think we need to worry about it too much. It's also big back-to-back games from Corey Kispert. 23 with 4 threes and 5 assists. I'm inclined to ignore it. outside of streaming. Bilal absolutely stunk, and he has got a real problem in being a guy that when something doesn't go right, it just goes completely off track. 25% shooting with both his free throws. It makes him a tough fantasy guy, honestly. And over the last 2 weeks, he's playing 28 minutes a night, not even a top 200 guy. So are we back to him being not must roster? It does feel that way. Kyle Kuzma, who left last game, was ruled out, then was upgraded to questionable return. Apparently just played, so what? 16, 5, and 2 for him on inefficient shooting. But I guess there's a couple of stories here. Justin Champagny, only 17 minutes with no Poole, Sarr, or Brogdon. There'll probably be moments this season where you can roster him. But we have seen, I guess, a bit of a reality check if you thought that he was going to be a consistent producer. He doesn't appear to be. So if you're looking to move on, you do that. Keyshawn George started. We're obviously not holding him outside of really, really deep formats. 2 blocks there. And then Bob Carrington had a bad game. He was trending towards being maybe an ad and a solid sort of ish guy, but 8, 2, and 5 is obviously, again, not really cutting it. And as much as I do love Bub, the upside for him, it does feel relatively low. I've danced around it, but let's talk Jared Butler, because you want to talk about him. I mentioned him yesterday or the day before, I don't remember, talking about that this guy's just a really solid player, but the role is not available here all the time. He cooked 26 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, 58% shooting, 19 attempts. Again, just be very cautious. Look who is out. The top 2 point guards, Poole and Brogdon. So he got to do more. Now, Brogdon, again, we can just write him off. We don't worry about that. But Butler, I like him. He's a good player. This is, again, one of those, what's happened here? I wouldn't trust it. Look at the usage. Well, if you can't look at the usage, let me tell you what the usage was. 43%. Yeah, not real. Not going to continue. Not going to be something that happens all the time. Don't overextend yourself looking at Jared Butler. Good game, but so many weird, fluky things had to go into getting a performance like that out of him. The Philadelphia side of the equation, there was no Embiid in this one again, no Paul George. So the man who'd been close to getting DMPs, in fact, he'd been getting some DMPs quite a bit, Eric Gordon, moved into the starting lineup. I didn't even tell you that the Sixers won this one, 109-103. Eric Gordon started. He had 15 points with 4 threes, and honestly, I just don't think you can care about it. What's the point? He's not going to play most nights. This is a weirdish game with no George and no Embiid. Don't do anything with it. You'll be shocked to know that with no Embiid and no George, Tyrese Maxey was horribly inefficient, 41% on 27 attempts. He did have 29, 3, and 6 with 2 steals, but it's a relatively common thing for him now that when those guys are out, he just misses shots. And Yabusele did really, really well. 21, 8, 3, 5 threes, 2 blocks. That's a fantastic game. But of course, Embiid out, Drummond out. Absolutely no way that you look at that as a long-term play. It's a short-term stream scenario. And Kelly Oubre was solid. He wasn't great. He was solid. 15, 4, and 4. I love the 2 steals and he loved the 2 blocks. And the minutes for him remain very, very good. And he's a much better option than, say, a Caleb Martin, who did have 3 blocks and a steal here. But Oubre remains fringy, even though I still would be making sure that he sits currently on a roster somewhere in your league. Whether it's yours or not, that's up to you. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Yes, going to live events, that's what Game Time helps you do because they are able to provide you access to the tickets without dealing with the nonsense. Game Time gets you to sports and music and theatre and comedy. It makes it even easier to get those tickets for your favourite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks, which filters out the fluff and shows you only the incredible deals on the great seats. So when you're in there, you're looking to get those tickets to go see your local team play. Game Time Picks is going to provide that for you. Plus, they've got the super deal as well, which can give you the extra discounts, the all-in pricing, so you don't get surprised when you go on to check out. Everything there, the views from your seat, absolutely fantastic stuff from Game Time. So take that guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account, download the app, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Today's episode is also brought to you by Rocket RX. Get ready to boost your confidence and to take control in the bedroom with Rocket RX. It helps you feel more prepared and ready to perform at your best. Rocket RX makes all of that simple and stress-free. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments for erectile dysfunction at a lower cost than the branded alternatives. You don't have to go to the doctor. You don't have to go to the pharmacy. It just gets delivered straight to your door. Plus, the consultation with the US medical team is 100% online. So nothing awkward about it, delivered in discreet packaging to your door as well. And the consultation is fast and you get yourself that free prescription. So visit rocketrx.com to get started now. It only takes 2 minutes. Right now, our listeners can get 40% off your first order when you use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That is rocketrx.com. The code is LOCKEDONNBA for 40% off your first order. Terms and conditions apply. RocketRx. Better sex made simple. All right. We're one game down. Let's do the second. This was one of the most anticipated games of the season. And I think it's fair to say that it lived up to it. The Thunder and the Cavs in Cleveland. No changes to the starting lineup on the Thunder side, and the Cavs win it. 129-122 is your final score here. That is, it was just a great game. Honestly, just a fantastic game between two of the best teams in the NBA. On the Oklahoma City side, Shea had 31, 5 and 4, 3 steals and 2 blocks. He does it almost every game. And what we actually got in this one, which is more noteworthy, is a good game from the Bronco, which has been lacking. 25, 5 and 9, 3 steals, a block, great shooting apart from the free throws, but good to get back on track. Hartenstein did his thing as well. 18, 11 and 8. He's a Cavs legend, I think, Hartenstein. Revenge game. Isaiah Joe, 25 minutes. He hasn't really been playing that role much recently, but he was able to be one of the first guys off the bench in this game. And that meant that we got fewer minutes for some of those other guys who'd been playing. AJ Mitchell actually was not healthy, so they didn't go that way. We got more 30-plus minutes from Cason Wallace. He had 15 with 3 threes. He didn't have any defensive stats, but he shot the ball well. He still is incredibly low usage, Wallace. The Hong Kong mattress remains a solid enough 12-team league guy, but the upside is relatively low, and Lou Dort's in the same boat. Low upside. Minutes are sort of stable. Dort's are more stable than Wallace's are, and Lou had 7, 4 and 4 with 2 blocks in this game. We also got 22 Aaron Wiggins minutes. He had 11 points, but I don't really think there's a lot to take out of this game from a fantasy perspective for the Thunder. But honestly, this is the sort of matchup that you want in the playoffs, that you want in the NBA Finals. It was fantastic. On the Cavs side of things, they also were able to go in with an unchanged lineup, and both Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley absolutely cooked. 25, 12 and 6, 3 steals and a block for Allen. That is an amazingly good game. Evan Mobley, 21, 10 and 7, steal and a block. Elite efficiency. They carried while the guards struggled. Speaking of struggling, here's one of the guards. So it wasn't actually even a segue because it's just literally what I was talking about. The Don. 11 points for Don Mitchell, 19% shooting, 6 rebounds and 4 assists. Now, he has been quite bad over the last week or two. It is a buy low, but do not value Donovan Mitchell as a first rounder or a second rounder at this point. He's a third round player. He was just quite bad here. Garland was a bit better, 18, 1 and 7 on 47%. Not quite at his usual standards. It was also a really good game from the winter soldier, Max Strus. 17 with 5 threes and 5 assists. Now that's great. You might be tempted to add him. I get it. He shot 86% to get there. What I'm more interested in is the 5 assists. The 5 threes are great. He couldn't miss, really. But we're not going to rely upon that as a 12-team league sort of a scenario where he does this and plays with that role in those minutes every night. Don't rely upon that as something that you're into. Isaac Okoro returned. He played 13 minutes. Dean Wade had 11 points with 3 threes. And Milk dropped in 15 in 12 minutes. Old Ty Jerome. And we also saw Karis LeVert drop down to 20 minutes. 8 points with 2 threes. He's only a streamer in a schedule plus type situation, which the Cavs were in. But they've got that game tomorrow, so you'd hold on through that. But overall, he's not a long-term hold, I don't believe. The next game, your Chicago Bulls and the Indiana Pacers. The big win there for the Pacers, 129-113 is your final score. Chicago still without Ayo Dosunmu, as we're aware. Zach LaVine, though, continues to put up big numbers on elite efficiency. The sell high strengthens. 31, 4 and 4 on 60%. High usage, elite efficiency. It will burst at some point, so you just see what you can get back in a deal right now. Josh Giddey, only 22 minutes in this game, 9, 5 and 5. He's been obviously incredibly up and down all season. That's not a terrible game with the overall numbers. You just don't like the 22 minutes. And Lonzo Ball had 5 and 3 with 2 steals and a block. What he is at the moment is a little bit like the Hong Kong mattress Cason Wallace. Anything you get that's not steals, you're pretty happy with. It's a little bit of a bonus. Ball just obviously playing fewer minutes. I don't think he's ever going to play 30 minutes this season, so I wouldn't worry about that. But 24 a night's probably enough most times. Pat Williams was very good for Pat Williams. He was 0 of 6 from the field for 2 points, and he had a block. Cool. This is why we don't roster him. That's why we consider him a streamer, understanding that it's Pat Williams and you're going to get stinkers chucked up there quite a bit. We had a good Jalen Smith game, and it's just always one to register in our minds to remember. 13 and 7, 2 threes, 1 block, 100% shooting from the field and from the line. So if we get absences from Nikola Vucevic, Smith is going to be a must-roster player. As for Vuce, 10 and 7, scoreless in the second half, didn't attempt a single free throw, didn't hit a 3. He did have 2 blocks. He played 27 minutes only, and the slide for Vuce continues to the spot where he belongs, which is a mid-round player. Yep, good. Kobe White also, he'd been really, really playing well. This one, yeah, mid. And that's okay. We expected it to drop. That's why he was on a sell high list. 19, 2 and 5 with 3 threes for Kobe with no defensive stats. Not a bad game, not a great game, not at the level that he was producing at before. For the Indiana Pacers, there was no Aaron Nesmith, and then we got no Miles Turner. Illness strikes him down. So that meant that the tank Tom Bryant started. And no one has ever argued that Tom Bryant can't put up fantasy stats. He can, easily. And it helps when you're going up against Nikola Vucevic. 28 minutes for Bryant, 22 and 8, 2 threes and 2 steals. Do not let this convince you to do anything stupid. Yes, if Turner is out of the next game, stream Bryant in. No, this does not mean that Bryant will now get 20 minutes a night or even 17 minutes a night. It's a pretty good game. Don't get sucked into it. But he is their only center outside of Turner. So if Miles is out, you would consider adding him. Halliburton had an ankle issue heading in. He didn't look 100% right, but he had 16, 3, and 13 with 2 steals and didn't have to play full load. And it was a better Andy Nembhard game, 14, 6, and 5 with 2 steals. He remains the same. You stream him in. If you have him, you have him. If you don't, you don't. Whatever. It's all good. Add him, drop him. I don't think it makes that much of a difference. And Siakam had 26 and 6, but Ben Mathurin, yeah. 8 points, 25 minutes, 4 assists. He's been better than this. He's been worse than this. He remains a guy that you do not roster in 12 teams. That's not true. I mean, you can roster him, but absolutely not a must. If he's on your waiver wire, totally reasonable decision. We also got a little bit larger of a role from Toppin because Turner was out, 12 and 5 in 23 minutes, which is fine, but it's nothing we need to care about for the majority of leagues. And then Jarris Walker, hello, had a 1-1 with 12, 2, and 3. That'll bring us to the next game. We're going to New York for the Tom Thibodeaus against the Toronto Raptors, 112-98. The Knicks get the victory. We'll start on the Toronto side, who had that same starting group rolling again. And we wanted to see what would happen with Emmanuel Quickley, because the last 2 games had been a little bit down. We talked about him as maybe it's a psychological buy low as well as a production buy low. He waited all this time. He didn't shoot well. People go, why did I bother? He's going to get hurt anyway. Well, you can that's dead now after this game, and you only had a short window. But 22, 3, and 5 for Quickley with a steal and a block. Love it. Scott Barnes, 18, 5, and 5 with 4 blocks. Also pretty good. Rowan Barrett, 16, 5, and 2, 111. Not as good, but still pretty good, while Pirtle had 8 and 10. And that's your main 4 guys. Everybody else is going to sort of just fluff around and do nothing, including Dick. Grady Dick did nothing. 3 points, 20 minutes, 17% shooting. I know there are plenty of you out there that love the idea of holding onto Dick. But please, guys, you don't need to do it.
Get that garbage out of here.
I've encountered resistance about holding Dick all season. People seem to believe that there is enough for him to do when they're healthy. There is not. If players go down, well, now it's Dick time. But at the moment, it isn't. Olynyk played 18 minutes. Cool, we're not rostering him. But how about the wiki Chris Boucher? Have you ever seen a line where someone plays under 4 minutes and has 10 points? Well, that's what he did. We can safely ignore that. Gary Trent III, Jacoby Walter had 0 points in his 22 minutes. Jamal Sheard and Bruce Brown. The bench is a bunch of nothing. Ochai Agbaji got hurt and didn't return. He had 4 points and we're not rostering him. Realistically, it's 4 guys and that's it. Nobody else has 12-team appeal. Dick is close to a 14-team guy, but I could actually see that going the other direction as well. And not being a 14-team league guy, but that's where we're at. I don't really think that there's a lot to talk about with that game, or with that team, actually. With the other team, we can talk a little bit because the Knicks win it easily, and Karl-Anthony Towns returned from his knee injury. He did not look comfortable at all, but he played 34 minutes. He had 27 and 13. He had 3 steals and 2 blocks, and it was great. We just hope that the play style, let's put it that way, doesn't lead to some more timeout. OG Anunoby also was great. 27 with 4 threes, 2 steals, and a block. Shot the ball really well. Another huge buy low bump. But of course, this one is only because it was a revenge game. That's why RJ Barrett played so well on the other side. Josh Hart had 21, 11, and 7 in 38 minutes. A small locker room trip, but he's okay. And he continues to be actually ridiculous this season. And Brunson was mid again. Now Bro can't even hit free throws, 2 of 4. 38, 9 from the field, 13, 6, and 7. What a huge letdown he's been. We knew there'd be somewhat of a usage drop, but it's not even that. It's other things. Where are the threes? Where are the steals? Where's the efficiency? It's all gone. It's concerning. And, of course, because we can never have Anunoby and Bridges play well together, Mikal Bridges had 10 points on 22% shooting, 18 attempts. He had 3 assists, and that's what he is. He is a player that when things are rolling, he's doing it on extreme efficiency, but there's not enough happening in a lot of those other areas to buffer it. We're still rostering him, obviously, but you're going to have a lot of swings and ups and downs based on the individual moments. Landry Shamet played 21 minutes, cool. Cool. He's bad. I don't know why we're relying upon him. And honestly, I just don't know what else there is to talk about on this Knicks squad. So we won't talk about him. We will go on to the next game, which is the Pistons and the Nets, but we won't do it just yet because I've got something else to tell you about before I do that. And that is a new sponsor of the show. Well, they've been here all day today. It is Ultimate College Basketball HC, a brand new mobile game that lets you take on the role of a college basketball coach. You handle everything: recruiting, hiring staff, training camps, NIL, scholarships. You do it all. You want to pull someone's scholarship because they were being a jerk to you? I guess you can do it in the game. It sounds realistic. You want to put them into the transfer portal, see what happens? Maybe they do it to you. I don't know. But you can also do things with your games as well. Draw up plays, set your strategy. And all of this stuff leads to your legacy as a college basketball coach. So when you get in there, you've got a special offer we can give you as well, which is the Locked On CBB, all caps, code. And that gives you a boost to start your program. So get in there, download Ultimate College Basketball HC, and you can do that at ultimate-cbb.com, or you can look it up on the App Store. Ultimate College Basketball HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. So that will give us a chance now to go on to the next game. It is the 5th game of the day. We're talking about the Brooklyn Nets hosting your Detroit Pistons, who just keep on winning. The Pistons rolled out the same starting lineup. We still have absolutely zero updates on Asar Thompson, which continues to worry me. It worries me a lot. 113-98, the final score. Detroit, Leaky Beasley, bad game last time, bounce back huge. 23, 2 and 5, 2 steals, 4 threes, just got to roster him. What about Cade? Not that good from Cade. In fact, pretty bad from Cade. He only played 23 minutes in this one as well. This game was somewhat of a blowout. 13, 5 and 5 for Cade. In that sort of a game, you're happy to get out of it with that sort of level of production, given the fact that it was a blowout. But overall, he's going to be better. Tim Hardaway, off his 26-point game with 0 other stats, actually did something else. He had 1 assist. He did have 3 rebounds and a block, so I was doing that for comedy, but he had 10 points and 2 threes, again, illustrating why you don't want him. And this morning I talked about guys being added and people added him, and I was like, what are you doing? Why? And someone said that they'd added him, or he'd probably been added because it was back-to-back, and I get that, except that I think the data that I was using was off Yahoo, and that data, it was all the stuff that was completed after the game. So, no, actually, let me check that again. No, off the top of my head, no, my bad. You're right, they added him for the Wednesday, Thursday back-to-back. Lost my brain for a second. But again, this is why. He's not that good. He's not good. He had the occasional big blow-up game, but overall, he's not that good. Duran played 22 minutes. He had 8 and 9, 2 steals, 2 blocks. He is playing better. Now, the minutes again are low. It is a blowout scenario, but he is playing better. Isaiah Stewart had 2 steals and 4 blocks. That's great from him. He's a streamable sort of a player. And Simone Fontecchio also got hot. 17 points, 3 threes. But overall, again, this game was over very early on. We actually got the 4 minutes of Bobby Klintman. Good for him. First NBA action for Klintman. And we had 3 minutes of Denise Jenkins. On the Nets side, let's probably a little bit more to talk about over there. They were able to roll out the same starting lineup because there was no Cam Johnson, there was no Cam Thomas, there was no D'Angelo Russell, there was no Ben Simmons, there was also no Day'Ron Sharp as well. No Watford, no Lewis, just a million guys out for the Nets as that continues to be, something that just keeps happening for whatever reason it is, tanking. But let's talk about the guys who have been much discussed for this team. And number one is Noah Clowney. 37 minutes, 29 and 6, 5 threes, 2 steals. Now, when we talked about the trade of Dorian Finney-Smith, I said, hey, I think we should add Clowney. I think it's going to be a little bit iffy at first, but I think eventually you're going to get run of it. And then people were like, why would you recommend this guy? He's terrible. He doesn't do anything. Yeah, and he had been bad. But I also said the last time they played, just keep an eye because he got the most shots on the team. Well, it turned out pretty bloody well, didn't it? I don't think it's going to be like this every game, but again, he got the most shots on the team, and that feels deliberate. He also brought in peripheral stats for the first time. If you want to add Noah Clowney, I think do it. I think you can do it. Do I feel confident that he's going to be good every game? No. And when D'Angelo Russell plays, and when Cam Johnson's back, and Thomas is back, he probably won't be worth it. It'll be a little bit iffy. But for now, sure, do it. Claxton was also better, 14 and 6 with 3 blocks. And how about the big fella? 29 Tosan Evwanwan minutes. 13 and 7 with a steal. This guy was a guy that we actually did roster last season down the stretch for the Pistons. We're doing it at the moment because a million players are out, but just keep an eye on that for the double Onyxers. We had Tyrese Martin drop a 12, 10 and 4 in the start, and Zaire had 10, 5 and 3. Williams has been on the borderlines of 12s. I don't think he's a must at all. I think he's streamable and usable marginally around this time. I just want to see 29 plus minutes every night. He did get up to 28 here, so that's a good start. And then the guy that I have been looking at as a great ad, or at least a short-term ad, is Keon Johnson, and he was bad. And this is a great reminder, even though I still believe that it was the right decision to add him, and I think it is the right decision to hold him. He's not very good, so there are going to be bad performances, and he is going to have terrible shooting nights, and that's the big caveat with Johnson that we've said all the way along, is that he's not a good shooter, and he's going to really impact your field goals, and he did it here. 10 points, 30%, stinks. He had 2 threes, he had 2 assists, he had a steal. It's not a complete waste, but while Thomas and Johnson and Russell and Simmons, but even if Russell comes back, I would still stick with Keon at this point, but understand he is not that good. You're not going to be missing huge game-changing things, I don't think, if you get annoyed or there's something else better that you find out there. He's not a game changer. He's not any of those things. He's a good player with a good... Try again. He's a solid fantasy contributor, not a good player. He's a solid fantasy contributor with the way things currently are, and that's how you should view him. We also got 24 minutes from the Vulture, Reese Beekman. He had 5 assists with 2 steals and a block, and those deeper leagues, while all of the other point guards are out, you're going to get a little bit of use out of him. But again, that is not anywhere close to being anything long-term that we need to really worry about. The 6th game of the day was the Portland Trailblazers heading down to New Orleans to take on the Pelicans. Same starting group for the Blazers. I know a lot of people were pretty critical of the Donovan Clingan rest in this game, but I had forgotten about this as well. He tore his MCL. They called it a grade 2 MCL sprain. Again, that's a tear. He came back very early. This is the first back-to-back that they've had since he returned. So it's the first game of a back-to-back, so I'm guessing that's why he was resting. He's a big... No offense to him, big-assed big man who lumbers up and down the court, who's had plenty of foot and lower body injuries in his career. He's wearing a big-ass knee brace, and it's a back-to-back. So I know they labeled it as rest, which again incites the hatred. They could have just said knee management, which I would have gone, oh yeah, he tore his MCL. I forgot about that, because I did forget about it. And that's why he was out. Rob Williams popped in, though. He had 6 rebounds and 4 blocks in his backup minutes. He won't play tomorrow, almost certainly. So you can move on. You don't have to worry about rostering him. Denny Avdia, wrist sprain, 27 minutes, 26 and 6, 4-3 steal block. Not must sell. That's not correct. A sell high player. He is putting up great numbers, and yes, Jeremy Grant will not play out the season. There is no worries about that. But have you thought that maybe Avdia doesn't either? And also, he's shooting well above expectations. And that's the kicker to me. Because you can convince somebody that, man, like... Avdia is great. He just doesn't fit what I need. This is what's going to happen. Grant's not going to play. He's going to be great. Right? You can convince someone of that. You might even end up convincing yourself of that. But what he's doing at the moment is fueled by Grant being out, but it's supplemented, it's raised, it's boosted by the fact that he's just not missing shots. Kamara was pretty good here. Actually, very good. 15, 3 and 5 with 3 steals and a block. He's fine. He's not a must, I don't think. He's totally good to roster when the schedule works in his favor, and it is at the moment, so do it. And Shaden Sharp had 24 points. We had Anthony Simons on the Sell High show. I won't say that he necessarily justified that here, but he wasn't awesome. He was fine. He was pretty good, actually. 17, 6 and 5 on elite shooting, but the volume was way, way down in his 29 minutes. And then Scoot had 29 minutes, which is a W. But again, the Blazers cooked them. They cooked them. So Billups was able to just go to his bench. So that's why we got more Scoot Henderson minutes and fewer minutes for Kamara and Avdia and Simons and Sharp, who had 21 points. Scoot had 13, 2 and 5, which is respectable. But unless I see 29 minutes consistently, I'm not looking at him as a 12-team league player. And the Snowman, DeAndre Ayton, had a double-double with, actually, and unbelievably, he took free throws and blocked a shot. I don't think that's ever happened in his career ever. There you go. He did it. Amazing stuff. Tide is turning. The Pelicans, though, this is incredibly horrible. But we understand, I guess, a little bit why. We don't really, but we do. Zion was out after playing yesterday. He's returned from his hamstring. Trey Murphy was out again, so they started Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, who had 2 points in 20 minutes. Sick. Herb Jones also hurt his shoulder again. Didn't return after 18 minutes and went scoreless. He was Tony Snelling, basically. He did have 2 steals. If Herb is out for a period of time, he's not a must-roster guy. He's so low-end to me and so categorically specialist that you don't have to hold him if he misses a bunch of time. CJ McCollum, what a wild run of games. What do you have? 50 points, then 5 points, and now 23 points, but 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks. Like, it's fine. It's pretty good. And DeJounte Murray, another solid shooting night, which, haven't said that many times, have we? 20 points, 5 assists, 2 steals, but only 26 minutes. The game was over incredibly early. The alarm bells are absolutely ringing on Yves Missi. 2 and 7 in 25 minutes, but not just because of this game, because I think he is going to get absolutely killed when Zion and Trey both play, which literally could be the next game. I would not drop Yves Missi just yet, but we are extraordinarily close to that being an edict that we throw out there. It is getting very, very close to it because, again, it's just trying to find that right spot. And the Pelicans, they just can't. Yeah, they just can't find the right way to get things going. Like this whole season needs to be cleansed somehow. I don't know how they do it. They got to do something. We need something abstergent to get in there and really wash all this stuff away. Wash it away. All right, we do the next game. The Clippers and the Denver Nuggets, like I said earlier, Kawhi Leonard was out of this game, and it just appeared, and Ty Lue said this before the game, that he didn't know what the team was going to provide, who was going to be available. Obviously, the stuff back at home for them in LA with family and even themselves affected. There's got to be an issue with that, right? And they got cooked. 126-103. They just went back to their previous starting lineup. Derek Jones moved in for Kawhi Leonard, and Norman Powell got the usage back. Now, it wasn't a great Norman Powell game. It was good. Never going to sneeze at 30 points, but he had 4 rebounds. He shot just 77 from the line on 13 attempts and 47 from the field. Still a 40% three-point shooter. And that's the thing. When you are going at 45, 46, 47% shooting, when you come down to be still excellent at 40 or 39, it's still a 7 percentage point drop, 6 percentage point drop. And that's what happened here with Powell. Still a good game, but he's now the 93rd ranked player over the last 2 weeks. Your sell-high window, I believe, is closed. I know that people are going to argue with me. They already have. His sell-high window is closed. That's the opinion. Ivica Zubac, can he hit free throws now? 6 of 7 from the line for 10 and 8 with a block. Jim Harden, 16 points, 4 assists, a million turnovers. Not a million, he had 5, but he's still in a gigantic slump, Harden. I do believe he is a little bit of a buy low, but he is in a slump. And what we've seen is the games that Kawhi played, they don't really use perfect knees Bumba. But in this game, Kawhi was out, Bumba played, he had 4 and 8 with 2 blocks. That's streamable, sort of, I guess. Dunn didn't do anything, Jones didn't do anything, Kevin Porter didn't do anything. None of those players are 10 or 12, or honestly, maybe not even 14-team league guys at this stage. This was a blowout from very, very early on. We also got one of the worst games you'll see for 33 minutes. Amir Coffey has shot 18%. He had 6, 0, and 1. Tim Hardaway, extraordinarily proud of that performance. On the Denver side of the equation, still no Jokic, still no Aaron Gordon. But this time they didn't start Dario Saric. They went with DeAndre Jordan. And if you streamed him in because revenge game, he actually delivered 12 and 9 with 2 steals. That's a good DeAndre Jordan game. Of course, you don't care. There's no long-term value here or anything like that. Jokic is not out for a long period of time. He's got an illness. He probably plays in the next one. So whatever. Michael Porter had 19 and 8. The headmaster Jamal Murray had 21, 3 and 9. Westbrook had 19, 6 and 8. It's a pretty good game apart from the bad free throws. It's fine. You roster him. That's all good. And then Christian Brown did enough to keep his head above water. How did he do it? Well, he shot ridiculous, 75%. 15, 2 and 1 with a steal. I do not think that Christian Brown is going to end the season as a must-roster player. Pretty sure he's not, actually. But for now, you can just hold on. One thing I'll just pay a little bit... let's talk Peyton Watson, because last game he played a lot of minutes. This game, 2 blocks, 24 minutes. Defensive streamer until Gordon returns. But Julian Strouder has now put together 2 solid games back-to-back. I don't think you need to add him, but he played 32 minutes. He had 16 points with 4 threes, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. And if you remember all the way back to preseason, Strother was so much better than Christian Braun. He dominated through the preseason. I thought, all right, is he going to get a chance to start here? The answer was no, absolutely not. He didn't, and he barely played. But you can just sort of see the outlines of Strother feeling more comfortable. The minutes pushing up a little bit. So deeper leagues, you just want to pay a little bit of attention, I think, to where Strother sits, the playing time that he's going to get, and how they're using him, and whether that turns into a little bit more of a minute split. Because Brown was getting like 36 a night. He's down to 32 a night over the last 2 weeks, and Strother's minutes are up to 24 a night over the last 2 weeks as well. So it's just a situation to just keep an eye on at this point. All right, on to the last game of the night. Another blowout here. The Spurs get handled comfortably by the Milwaukee Bucks. 121-105 is your final score. Jeremy Sohan was out with that back injury. We hope that that's not something that's a permanent flare-up spot, because they do really need him. Steph Castle moved into the starting group. He was bad, as he has been every game, basically. And I know that he gets frothed a ton, but he's not that good. And we absolutely want nothing to do with Steph Castle in fantasy leagues. Not at all.
Get that garbage out of here.
Castle, barely, did he do 2 of 12 shooting, 25 minutes, 5 points, 5 assists, no defensive stats, no rebounds. He's had plenty of opportunities this season to start, and he's not touching the sides of 12-team value. It was also a quiet night from Victor Wembanyama. He got sort of stifled, I guess, by the Bucks and their defensive scheme, just 10 points and 10 rebounds. He still added in 3 blocks, so it's not a complete disaster, but one of his worst games of the recent times. While Keldon Johnson scored really well off the bench, the Horse had 24 points with 11 rebounds. That's fantastic. He had 15 shot attempts. He hit 7 of them. That's great. Do not use this as your sign or your indicator to go and add Keldon Johnson. It's a good game. I think he had 5 points in the last 2 minutes of the game as well, which also helped boost those numbers. It is a good result. Do not do anything silly with it. Don't add him. Chris Paul, he battled through 18, 5, and 7, while the pencil Harrison Barnesy. He had 14 points in his 25 minutes, and we don't roster him. Not a great night from Vassell. In fact, pretty bad. 11 points on 17 shots. And the guy that we thought might get a little bit of more to do, and he did, 27 minutes for Julian Champagny, but 9 points, 27% shooting. He's still over-rostered in 12s. I get streaming him in for a day like today. That does make some sense to try it out and see what happens. But in the end, Champagny and Johnson and Castle and Barnes, they're just not must-roster players. They're guys you leave on the wire, and you can stream them in on certain circumstances for single games, schedule plus spots maybe, but overall, when Vassell is out there, when Sohan's playing, when Paul and Wemby are there, there's just not enough for those guys to do for it to matter for the vast majority of people. On to the Milwaukee Bucks. They rolled out the same starting lineup. Khris Middleton's back, but we know he's going to be coming off the bench now. And that is a little bit of a red flag for his production, because Doc Rivers said it wasn't necessarily a form thing. It was about managing the injuries. And I did flag this a couple of days ago. I said, that's interesting. Middleton went up to 30 minutes, and they pulled him back to 28, 27, 26. I went, that's not ideal. What's going on? And now in this game, he played 21 minutes. And if his ankles are that, and then he sat out a game the other day, if his ankles are that rooted, and maybe they are, I don't know that you need to hold. 8, 5, and 3, 21 minutes.
Get that garbage out of here.
You don't have to drop Khris Middleton, but this is clearly not a good sign. And I think they're going to be that cautious with him that they're bringing him off the bench. I don't think you have to hold on to that. I think you can move on. Bobby Portis had this little run where he was playing way more minutes than Brook Lopez, and it was eye-opening, and now he played 19 minutes, had 5-point shot, 17%. Now, he's not going to be this bad every night, but the minutes have flipped back. Lopez got 35. He had 22 and 7 with 5 threes and 2 blocks, and we said that at the time, that Lopez is in a buy low position here. He probably will step back up. He'll probably have another down period later on. Portis will also step up, but this is the status quo. It's Portis playing lower minutes, doing not very much, waiting for an injury, and then we got that little random production little surge from Portis. Lillard had 26, 5, and 8. Really good shooting night. Fantastic night for him. And Yanni had 25 and 16. But it was the second good game in a row for Gary Trent Jr. 14 points with 4 threes and 2 steals. Do I care? Not really. We've seen Trent do it, and it's the same thing every time. The shots went in. You hit some threes. Good for you. Ooh, some steals. Great. And then in other games, you'll do nothing. If you're looking for a steals and threes guy, he's on the list. He's one of the guys to look at. but I'm not going to have any reliability in 22 minutes of Gary Trent tonight. That's a deep league play. It's a streamable situation, and literally, that is it. I'm not even going to mention, well, I am, because I'm doing it now, the artist formerly known as Torian Prince, who had 3 points in 24 minutes, and a great example that just because you're starting doesn't mean that we have to care, and we don't. So let's talk about the lines of the night then from the day. The monstrous line of the night is the injured man in New York himself, Karl-Anthony Towns, 27, 13, and 2. 3 steals, 2 blocks, good minutes, great shooting. He's been unbelievable this season. Your waiver wire line of the night is also your young gun of the night because it's Noah Clowney. 29 points with 6 rebounds and 5 of 11 threes. That is back-to-back games that he's had. It led the team in shot attempts, but remember, Johnson, Thomas, Russell, Simmons, Watford, Bogdanovic, if he ever plays, they're all out. So I like Clowney. I like the prospects. I like the upside. I'd like him to do a little bit more defensively. And you roster him for now, maybe, but don't necessarily think it's all solved. The dud of the night, well, this one we're going to Washington, and it's Bilal Coulibaly. I feel like he's had a few of these this season, 5, 4, and 2. When things go bad for him, they just go terrible. And again, plenty of indication that that's something that's an ongoing problem. I think in shallow leagues, you don't necessarily have to hold on to Bilal. I'm not sure the upside is high enough to deal with this nonsense that seems to happen just a little bit too often. Only a couple of guys left games today due to injuries. One of them was Herb Jones with the shoulder. That's the more important one. If he misses, they'll need a little bit more of Jose Alvarado's defense. He got 3 steals in this one, Alvarado. But then you're going to have the problem of Zion and Trey returning maybe in the next game. So any potential gains of Alvarado are overridden by Herb and Zion returning. That also helps Misi too. And then Ochai Agbaji left with a back injury. He was only a very deep league guy anyway. And if he does miss, you might get John Mobo called back up from the G League. A little bit of extra time for Chris Boucher. But this is, again, just very deep league stuff. We didn't get any significant injuries in-game to players or even ads that are going to be guys to pay attention to for standard formats. I don't have the full list up because, again, a little bit of a time crunch here in terms of guys that we look at for waiver wire, your top 6s and things like that. But I'll tell you who the top 6 was. It's Towns, Allen, Jared Allen, Shea, Jalen Williams, Damian Lillard, and Noah Clowney. Your top 6 waiver wire guys, Clowney, Yabusele, who we know to stream in when Embiid is out, Tamani Kamara, who is streamable without being a must-hold, Malik Beasley, who I just think you roster, and the last one is Corey Kispert, who's on a nice little hot streak at the moment with some players out, and that's really the key part of that. And that, guys, is the end of our show. In the meantime, you know that you got to just hit a thumb, you double bang, you subscribe, but more importantly, keep yourselves safe, keep yourselves mentally safe, physically safe. Don't let yourself drag yourself down. Someone else will try and do it. There's no doubt about that. Why would you give them a helping hand? Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.